I'm curious to know if people agree with Vinny's reactions.
Well, I think that you characterized the FOMO appeal quite well, like that, and we know that that is a strong appeal with millennials, that millennials are worried about missing out on certain things. So I agree with you that the fear pathos is dangerous in the sense that it can evoke it can evoke the wrong intention behind something. So I agree with you there, but I think at the same time, you're weighing what is more important, whether it's more important to get a good turnout at the polls or whether it's important to keep your pathos away from fear. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, similar to that, I guess I didn't really see a huge difference between the first and the second, that I saw kind of the same rhetorical appeal, just maybe he took it a little bit farther in the fear aspect in the second one. So I was having a little bit of a hard time differentiating between the two, but I do agree that the second one, in my opinion, would be more using that fear tactic than the first.
Vinny, did you think there was not only an element of fear, but an element of shame in the second one?
Yeah, I think in terms of, and I definitely agree with Anna and Joel in looking at this rhetoric as effective. I think if you were to look at the ultimate purpose of Hank Green's political rhetoric to mobilize as many people to the polls as possible, it is quote unquote effective in that respect. But I think the utilization of fear and this public shaming of sorts, and this has to do more of, I guess, with the actual app itself and why that app was created. That at least struck wrong with me with my own conception of what voting is, and voting as more of a private individual value and action than this social community shared idea.
Thank you. Thank you.
Today I'm going to share an example of poor political rhetoric from the gubernatorial race in New Hampshire. This was during a debate that happened several weeks ago, and the question that was asked of Democratic candidate Molly Kelly was to name one specific action she will take on day one in office to fight the opioid crisis. For those of you who don't know, opioid use is a big problem in New Hampshire, especially in the recent years, and so that's a big talking point in this election. And this was her response. Well, I think it's always hard to say one thing. I will just tell you, on the first day that I'm in office as governor, I will make sure that every child in the classroom is not hungry and has had breakfast. And we can do that. We can pour all the money that we want into education, but if our children are hungry in schools, they will not learn. So that's number one. The other is this opioid epidemic. It is a crisis. It is an epidemic. And we must address it. There is not a family in this state who has not been affected by this epidemic and continues not to be. So we do need to address it, and I would put forth an emergency plan to address the issue of treatment, prevention, and recovery, and to make sure that the children who are the real victims of this disease as well are supported, and their caregivers as well. And I said this is poor political rhetoric because the introduction is weak, first of all, by saying that it's hard to give one specific thing. And then also she uses the red herring, which is a fallacy that we learned about, and didn't even talk about the question. She talked about providing children with breakfast before school. And then there was also a lot of unnecessary repetition, I felt, that it didn't sound meaningful. It sounded like she was trying to buy herself time before she had to think of the next part of her response. And finally, she never answers the question. She never provides one specific thing that she will do as governor to help the opioid epidemic. Any questions or comments?
I guess I'm wondering, I don't know if you saw the rest of the debate, but did the opponent call her out on that response?
Yes, he did. And he did a very good job of it because he's the current governor right now. So he brought up some very specific actions that he has already taken to address the issue.
Thank you. There are many instances in political rhetoric where someone says, I have a plan, or we have a plan, or we are developing a plan, or we are thinking about a plan. And that's usually a sign that they don't know what they're talking about, at least not yet. So I think that's a good example to show in this case that someone should have been ready to answer a question about what is indeed, especially in rural America, killing more people than automobile accidents. It's that bad, and it's increasing. And someone running for statewide office should have some concrete things to say about it, I would imagine. But many politicians put themselves in the place of having a plan without actually saying what it is. It flies maybe for a little while, if at all, but then it doesn't.
Be reading an excerpt of the Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker's victory speech after he won the Republican Party nomination. Notice how for a majority of the excerpt he starts each sentence with "we." It's very unifying. He doesn't imply that only his actions led to the successes that he explains. Everyone did it together. All his supporters, his campaign team. The sentences are short and to the point. It's easy to follow. It's easy to listen to. And each claim he makes is backed up by concrete evidence. First, he says, we said we'd improve our schools. Then, right after, or later, he says, our schools' dropouts rates have been the lowest. So I'll start. Thank you, thank you. And thanks to the voters of Massachusetts who braved 90-degree heat to get out and vote to put Karen Polito and me on the path to 4 more years. Karen, thank you for your leadership, partnership, and commitment to the people of Massachusetts. Your visits to all 351 cities and towns make clear that when it comes to working with local governments, we don't just talk the talk, we walk it. When Karen and I began this journey 5 years ago, we said we'd make Massachusetts a place of hope, opportunity, and possibility. We said we'd focus on creating jobs, improving our schools, and building strong communities. We said we'd restore fiscal discipline, oppose tax increases, and make state government work better. And we'd promised we'd work with anyone, regardless of their party or ideology, to move Massachusetts forward. Today, 4 years later, our state is on the rise. Our economy is booming. Our schools are best in the nation. And hope and possibility is blooming in every corner of the Commonwealth. On so many issues, we lead. Our economy has added 180,000 new jobs since we took office, and we've had more people working than at any time in our state's history. Our schools have the lowest dropout rate we've ever had and the highest graduation rate. And our kids ranked first in math and English nationally for the 6th year in the row. We eliminated a $1 million structural budget deficit, cleaned up the chaos we inherited at Medicaid and the Health Connector, invested over $500 million in our public schools, righted the ship at the Department of Children and Families, and added over $500 millions to our rainy day fund, all without raising taxes.
Who's the woman he was talking about in the beginning of his speech?
I don't know that. I don't know if I'm not familiar with it.
Who is that woman? Lieutenant Governor, yes. Something to look up if you don't know who it is. I think it's a very nice speech. And I think it's an example of good political rhetoric, especially since he doesn't mention transportation, which has been a mess. But if things have been a mess and you haven't fixed them yet, you probably shouldn't mention them. But many good things, yes. This has also Governor Baker's easy, courtly semi-formality. If you heard him speak at the inauguration of President Bacow, you know that he speaks in a conversational way, but he speaks very crisply as well. Thank you, Noor.
As my example of poor political rhetoric, I've chosen an example from the incumbent Democratic senator of my home state in Indiana. And this was during a recent political debate between him and two other candidates for the position, and he was asked the question of how he would commit to bringing diversity into his leadership positions. His answer is as follows. We want everybody to have a chance in Indiana and in America, and my offices reflect that, both on the campaign side and on the Senate side. Our state director is Indian American, but he does an amazing job. Our director of all constituent services, she's African American, but she does an even more incredible job than you could ever imagine. It isn't their race or religion, but the incredible person that they are. But at the same time, they have to have a chance. They have to have an opportunity. And that's my responsibility, and I've done it in every office I've had. So I believe this example is really a textbook example of how one word can absolutely ruin the force of your speech. Just the word but in those two instances really tore away at his ethos throughout the entire statement. He had a lot going for him in talking about diversity, and he really has incorporated a lot of diversity into his campaign. But the word but totally messed up his ethos and made it seem like he was viewing minority people as less capable in those situations. Any questions?
I'm just curious, what was the reaction to this?
They definitely jumped on that. The other two candidates really jumped on this, and there was a lot of backlash on social media, and it was not pretty for him.
It's not a concrete question, but did he actually mean the but? I'm so confused.
My guess is probably not, because he has, like I said, he has incorporated a lot of these minority things. That's a big talking point for him. But yeah, kind of messed him up.
This is a very good example of the fact that it doesn't matter what you mean. It matters what you say. You have said it, and it becomes a matter of record. Then, if you want to revise it, you must walk it back. Either you misspoke, or you need to revise it and call yet more attention to it, or you hope it goes away, which it usually won't. So it does show how important it is to be able to speak well. Now, this is extemporaneous speech. This is not from a prepared text. That still does not excuse it. In order to speak well extemporaneously, you need actually to think while you are speaking. You need to be able to hear in your mind the next few words that are going to come out of your mouth. That's a difficult thing. But if you've ever played a musical instrument, you know that you can imagine the next bar or two even as you are playing the present one. You know what music is coming next. That's what you need to do in extemporaneous speech. And it helps to slow down a little. The more you rush, the more you feel anxious, the more likely you are to commit the but that you shouldn't. Very good.
Hello. I will be presenting a case of what I think is good rhetoric, an example of good rhetoric. This comes from a response made by Beto O'Rourke in Fort Worth, Texas, in his Senate campaign in August 2018, in response to a question about whether or not it is disrespectful to take a knee during the national anthem, particularly referring to NFL games. His response, I'm going to shorten a little bit. It's pretty long, but here's the shortened response. The question is, how do you feel about NFL players who take a knee during the national anthem? And is it disrespectful to this country, to the flag, to the service members who are right there tonight, where it is tonight in Afghanistan, and those former service members, retirees, and veterans who are here with us today? Thank you each for your service. My short answer is no. I don't think it's disrespectful. Here is my longer answer. But I'm going to try to make sure I get this right because I think it's a really important question. And reasonable people can disagree on this issue. Let's begin there. And it makes them no less American to come down on a different conclusion on this issue, right? You can feel as the young man does. You can feel as I do. You are every bit as American all the same. The freedoms we have purchased, not just by those in uniform, and they definitely were, but also by those who took their lives into their hands riding those Greyhound buses, the Freedom Riders in the Deep South in the 1960s, who knew full well they would be arrested, and they were, serving time in the Mississippi State Penitentiary. Rosa Parks getting from the back of the bus to the front of the bus. Peaceful, nonviolent protest, including taking a knee at a football game to point out that black men, unarmed, black teenagers, unarmed, and black children, unarmed, are being killed at a frightening level right now, including by members of law enforcement without accountability and without justice. And this problem, as grave as it is not going to fix itself. And they're frustrated, frankly, with people like me and those in positions of public trust and power who have been unable to resolve this or bring justice for what has been done and to stop it from continuing to happen in this country. And so, nonviolently, peacefully, while the eyes of this country are watching these games, they take a knee to bring our attention and our focus to this problem, to ensure that we fix it. That is why they do it. And I can think of nothing more American than to peacefully stand up or take a knee for your rights anytime, anywhere, any place. Thank you very much for asking this question. I really appreciate it. I think that this is example of very effective rhetoric. It is extemporaneous, and it was impressive to me how clear he was on his point and how he brought in a lot of important examples from American history. I also appreciated how he acknowledged the importance of this question and the importance that there is a discussion about it, even if there's disagreement on the subject in this country. He brings up pathos in the history that he alludes to. There's a lot more that he brings up that I did not include just now. So the pathos on purchasing the freedom of the U.S. and how that is done, both by those in uniform and by those who are peacefully protesting, I thought was a very effective use of language and use of reasoning. He also appealed to ethos when he admitted that people are frustrated with people like him. I appreciated that as well, in admitting that politics has not been effectively serving those black unarmed who are being killed. So this is a way to bring attention to that so that people like him can really take action and know that this is something that people in this country care about. So for these reasons and others, I think that this was a very effectively answered question. And does anybody have any comments or questions?